which is good. Welcome to the training today. What we're looking to do is just provide some documentation for you guys. And Carl has done a lot of work on this. So he's gonna take over here and talk to you about what we have to offer you as you guys look at starting to spend your ARPA resources.
Working here. All right. So, as you can see, let's get this up here. All righty.
Leslie, can you confirm you guys are seeing the slideshow?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so like Steve said, these are just a couple of resolutions. They're not necessary per se. They're really here just to help with documentation. The big thing is going to be one, it's a little bit of evidence for you guys. Again, here are the purposes. It's for record keeping. So yes, you'll have it in minutes that we spent ARPA funds on XYZ, but you can also have these resolutions. They're quick, simple. There aren't a lot of spaces to fill in. It shouldn't take much more than 2 to 3 minutes at a meeting to just fill in the couple of spaces. And we'll go into what those areas are going to look like. It'll also probably help making reporting easier. We don't have a lot of information on reporting yet, but what these have include all of the steps necessary of what we know for reporting so far. And if anything changes greatly, we'll probably go back and rework these just to make sure that it's helping out in making your reporting easier. If you're ever audited for your costs, you'll be able to quickly show this as evidence. And that will help in ensuring that
They're seeing that.
Yeah. That will help in making sure that you can show the evidence. Here's our reasoning. Here's why we thought that it was permitted. You can cite back to federal rules, federal laws, saying that it's correct. And then the other big thing here is that these are likely permissive costs. Looking at the federal guidance, these are things that seem pretty clear that they're allowed. What these resolutions are not meant to do is, one, they're not necessarily required. They're good, they're helpful, they shouldn't take a lot of time. The clerk will maintain these, but they're not required by law to spend ARPA funds to use these. Next is, these are not reporting. Again, we don't necessarily know what reporting looks like yet, but these are not that. And so you will still have to report come the end of April. And these won't be that, though they will help in that reporting process probably. 2 other quick notes is, one, who keeps these resolutions? Just like any other resolution, it's probably going to be kept by the clerk. The other question is for how long? Right now, indefinitely, for sure through the end of the American Rescue Plan Act, but your record retention schedule should help or set a time frame in which you will stop using these or destroy them or keep them forever if that's what your town does with resolutions. Now,
Hey, Carl, Christian, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Leslie Rosedal. We've upgraded to a larger account so folks are able to join the meeting now. Thanks.
so that being said, let's look at one of these resolutions. There we go. So just to confirm, Leslie, you are seeing a Word document now, correct?
Correct.
All right. Screen sharing is paused.
Hit stop share real quick.
All right.
Below in the red.
Yeah.
There you go. And then start from the beginning. On the
Yeah.
bottom. So I want to, we mentioned it's not required. There's nothing in federal law saying you must use these, but these are a way that you document what you're doing. And so we strongly recommend them, but you're not getting in trouble merely by not using them. They're a good way for you to track what you're doing. And for anybody who wants to see what you did, you will see, Carl put a lot of work into these, and you'll see the depth of description here.
Yeah, and one other thing too is if you've already started spending some of your money and that money fits into these resolutions, you can essentially ex post facto add in those resolutions. You can look at, we've already spent the costs, and so now we're saying that we did that with the resolution, essentially approving it by resolution or solidifying that usage from the past. And you may have to modify the resolution just to make sure that everything is making sense. So with that being said, let's look into this resolution. So it's going to be, again, it's a lot of jargon. We are saying where we got the money from in the American Rescue Plan Act.
I'm sorry, we're unable to see anything on GoToMeeting. It's all a black screen.
It would be dark. I have a dark mode.
Well, and sir, this is Leslie Rosedale. I'm our meeting host. I see that you've only joined by phone and not video. So that's why you're not able to see the screen.
No, I have joined by video. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm not seeing anything on GoToMeeting. I use it all the time. It's not.
So folks, what I'm doing, I use what's called dark mode on my laptop. So you're seeing it in a darker screen than you're probably used to. So what I'm going to do here is switch for you. I'm going to do it as a PDF. And I hope this will help you be able to see this better. Okay. So what you should be seeing now is a document with white back and black text. Leslie, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I'm hoping this is a little bit easier to see for folks. Okay. So there was a question here. Where do we find these? These will be on the website. We're working to get them on there right now. And they'll be in the Arpa section. So the news and events section of the webpage, there's a drop down. And the first entry in that drop down is Arpa information. You'll go to there. You'll go to the uses tab. And these will be in the uses tab. Again, they're not there right now, so don't go now. Okay. We are getting these online, and those should be up there. If we can get them on today, they'll be on today. Otherwise, we'll get them on as soon as we can here. So go ahead, Carl.
Yeah. So just going back through this resolution, one, we say where we got the American Rescue Plan Act from, what it does, modifying Title VI of the Social Security Act, again, citing to all the federal rules, how much it appropriates, and then further, how much it appropriates to non-entitlement units. It's showing that non-entitlement units include townships. Then you'll add in here your township name. Then you'll just be referred to as the town throughout the rest of the document. So that's the only place where you're going to have to add your township name until the very end. Further, we'll discuss the specific guidance. So here we're discussing in this resolution, I believe there are 11 or 12 in total. This resolution is specifically discussing improvements to township facilities. So it starts by listing the 4 major categories. As we've talked about ARPA, we talk about the 4 major categories in which you can spend. And so it lists those. Here, it says that the intended cost is under this first category, responses to the pandemic and its negative economic impacts, and defining what that is in here. And so it says that prevention mitigation of COVID-19, providing loans and grants, things like that. And so then we start to talk about what the town is looking to use it on. So you're improving town facilities. This could be adding in
An ADA ramp, if you're going to use it as your election place, one of the things you may want to do is improve your election capabilities. That could be a ramp. It could be a second ramp if you're trying to create one-way flows of traffic. It could be improvements that allow for distancing. For people, if you have multiple people working in that environment. It could be the improvements that protect a clerk or a treasurer if they're taking office hours there and you want to provide some separation between them and the public. These are things you could add to it. Another popular one has been air exchanger systems, moving air through the building in and out. Those are just some examples we've talked about before, but that would be where you describe the project here. And the project name, this is going to relate to your reporting that's going to come later, April 30th. Okay, you have to give a number to your projects. It doesn't have to be complicated, okay, but some kind of numbering system. And I think do the year, 21-01, that's your first project. Simple stuff, okay. That would probably be the way to go about it. Sorry, go on.
Yep. So yeah, like Steve was saying, you will be looking at the project name here. This has an affects the pandemic by the resolutions that will be up on the webpage will have text there. Again, clarifying those things that Steve said, either by adding a ramp or again, it will give some general things as to what the town is doing there. And then you'll have the now therefore be it resolved that the project name, again, which is a title you give it, response to the pandemic listed through the reasoning in the whereas above. And then you'll give the project name a project number. The best will again probably be the year and then some -001 or 100 or appropriate year -100. And then you'll fill in the rest. So again, these shouldn't take very long. Most of the information that the town will need to prove that the cost is eligible will already be in the resolution. You'll just have a couple of blanks which will be indicated on the forms that will be on the webpage soon.
And this is only one of several. There's, how many do we do? We have,
it's 11 or 12.
okay,
maybe
there's
13.
a lot of options we're trying to do here, okay? So there's going to be a bunch of different documents. They're very similar. You'll see a lot of overlap, okay, especially in the beginning. But each of these is designed so you have to do as little work as possible, but make sure you fill in the blanks. Okay, every once in a while we get somebody who doesn't fill in the blanks and they just file the blank copy. Doesn't really help us or you. So go through those, fill in those blanks, and there'll be a variety of things you can do. The list we have is not exhaustive. Okay, there may be other things you could do that aren't quite what we have described. And in that case, you may be able to use the language that we have to start and create your own, or talk to us about adding something, or your town attorney, whatever you'd like to do to get some clarity on what you're thinking about spending can be one that you do. Okay, so a lot of options here, and that was the goal of the project. And when you see these, it'll take a little time. Please don't be overwhelmed by the dozen or so options we have. That is meant to help you in the end select the right one and enter as little as you need, on each of these. So you are welcome, Pat. Thank you for the thanks. So let's see, Carl, anything else on this stuff?
Nope. At this time, we'll open the floor for questions if anybody has any.
This is Leslie Rosedale, I'm the meeting host. I'd encourage folks to put your questions in the chat feature. So Steve and Carl, Christian can see those. Otherwise, you could raise your hand if you know how to do that. If you're on a phone and don't have those features, you can press *9 and that'll alert us that you have a question as well.
Yeah, we're up to 200 some people. So if you all start talking at once, we will not understand a thing you say. So, so Mary asks, is there going to be a PowerPoint or something at the start? This is being recorded. And so we will have that online as well. If we'll make sure the training is there. You know, we'll take this and we'll make another training if need be. This is, as far as trainings go, this one's relatively straightforward. It's here, these resources for you. We want you to know that they're there. They'll be up shortly, not up yet again. But once they're up there, you guys will have them available and you can start to use them. Okay. And if you get questions about them, call us. If you see errors, please call us. We want to fix it so nobody else has to run through that error issue. Okay. Let's see. Now we're getting questions. Now I got to scroll up.
I think Ken has the first question. Can a single project encompass multiple aspects of a facility improvement? Yes. Again, so long as you're spending it all at once. And when I say all at once, not you've done facility improvements and then in 2024, once you're all done spending, you then pass this resolution later. But if you say, all right, we're going to do X, Y, and Z as part of our facility improvements. So we're going to add an ADA ramp, we'll add touchless amenities, we're going to add an air exchanger. Then yes, that can be couched under one resolution of facility improvement.
Next, we got Dresbach. Is there a resolution for loss of revenue?
Yes.
Yes. Next one, can ARPA funds be invested in a CD?
Yes.
Yeah. It kind of depends on how you're trying to characterize that. You cannot make a rainy day fund. So as long as it's stated this is being held for the appropriate uses, it's not creating a savings account. Okay, I don't want you to characterize that way. And this is, and that may seem silly. I know doing the same thing with different statements has a different result, but yes, you can invest it. And for towns who don't know what to do, we've said invest and take the earnings over time. Just understand that's not your rainy day fund. You still have to follow the directions of the program here. Mary, the meeting was at capacity. I'm sorry, yes. And so this again, folks, came in late. It's being recorded. We'll have it online. Okay, and we'll have everything there so that everybody gets the same opportunity. We had great interest in this, and that's a good thing. But and I'm sorry, it had a little trouble at the start there, but we will make it right. Let's see, per project use resolution for each. Yes, you probably should do it on a per project basis, unless it's a category. So for example,
Okay, perfect.
each year that you have lost revenue, I don't expect you to do a new one in each year for new lost revenue. You can take lost revenue in each of the 4 years of the program, but you do it once and recognize that you can take it over time. That's fine. I think that's acceptable. That would really be under the same project on that basis. Dawn asked, does the town board decide what to spend the money on? Yes, town board decides this. Okay. It's a board decision. It is not a voter decision. We're getting closer to that March meeting and there may be discussion of that. It's not a voter decision. Spending decisions are board decisions. Okay. What's the project process on getting ARPA funds for general use? Eric asks.
So my guess is this is going to be related to lost revenue. There's a lot of math involved. We have a calculator on our webpage. We also have a presentation on that specifically. Again, if you go to the ARPA info section, under the ARPA uses tab, you can watch the training on that, and that will give more clarification related to that than I can right here, right now. Yeah. So.
Just to confirm, reporting deadline is the end of April, correct? That is correct. Our rural town halls in need of insulation before doing the HVAC system to include air exchanger. Would that expense be included as an upgrade to the system? What do you think, Carl? I'm going to say no.
Right.
he might disagree with me.
Mhm. No.
So the difference, ultimately, you're going to be able to do it, okay?
Mhm.
But what's silly here, maybe, the air exchanger is a response to the pandemic category. The HVAC system or the installation, you could do as a lost revenue. All right, now you're into two project types, okay? I know it's all part of one activity group here, but as far as spending, the installation itself doesn't really have a COVID related purpose. So we can't put it into that response to the pandemic aspect. All right, your air exchanger, you could put into the response to the pandemic. And if you did that and say, okay, that's our response to the pandemic category, and then the installation is lost revenue, you'd need two of these. It's a separation, okay? Two documents here, and that's fine. You can ultimately achieve the same thing. If you're in the situation where you know you can use all or most of your money in lost revenue, you could just say, we're just putting it in lost revenue. We're just going to say it's all in lost revenue, do one project that includes all of that stuff, one of these forms, and then one line on your reporting. But that depends on what you have left for lost revenue and what you anticipate getting. The questions here. Okay.
Yeah.
We're afraid this is going to go too short for you guys. We're going to be like, well, that's
Mhm.
easy and have nothing
What
to
is
it. But
still-
okay.
Chris
Let's
is
see.
the next one.
Chris, okay. Start a project, began to allocate funds towards the project. We're considering breaking down the large project into smaller facets, planning, and then construction. Are we able to do that? Yes, I'm not sure how that would impact spending. I guess we have to talk about that because I'm not sure what that would entail.
Mhm.
Can you repeat the location of the resolutions? They will be in the news and information dropdown at the top, ARPA info, and then there's tabs in that section. And you have an ARPA uses tab. Go into that and it will be on there. We would like to purchase a printer, allow to scan and email, new laptop, large screen. Yes, two options here. Either response to the pandemic, if you think this is going to be something that helps you work remotely, or if we have to do another shutdown or stay home, okay, that'll help you work that way. Or in lost revenue category, that would be fine as well. James, will the purchase of an emergency power generator for the town qualify for ARPA funds?
Only under lost revenue, I can think.
I agree. I don't think you can do that under a second section on that one.
Mhm.
Diane, can it be used for installation? We just covered that one basically. Yes, only in the lost revenue section. Again, lost revenue, really powerful. It's almost like general fund. Cannot use it for savings like rainy day. Cannot use it for old debt.
Mhm.
But generally, if you're allowed to do it with your town fund, you'll be able to do it with lost revenue. Okay. Can you put the URL for the resolutions in the chat? I will try to do that. I'll do that now. Why don't you keep going on? Okay.
Yeah, we have a private septic system that serves 71 households out of the 3,000 population. MPCA has directed us to upgrade through nitrogen mitigation. Can ARPA funds be used for the small population? I guess it depends. Good attorney answer, right? You'll want to look at two categories. So one is water and sewer infrastructure investments, but that has to be allowed either through what's known as a Clean Water State Revolving Fund or the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Those are two federal grant programs.
I think that would fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing it would. If not, you would also be able to use it out of lost revenue. Like Steve said, it's an incredibly powerful tool. If the town can spend it, then you can use it in there so long as you have lost revenue to use. But again, you have to go through the calculation to figure that out. We have a presentation on that. I don't remember all the math offhand, and so it would be best to go look at that presentation and the calculator we have on our webpage.
And I just added the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund project eligibilities page. For those of you looking at this, this is a generic list. Okay, we are not experts in this list because we rarely deal with this, but I think this is a water issue that would probably fit in one of these categories.
Mhm.
Okay. Did we bump down again? Let's see.
Yep. Let's see. All right. Should we use a dollar amount associated with the project in the resolution? You could, though it's not required, just so long as you know how much you've spent That's all that you're going to need to remember. If there's a place to fill that in the resolution, certainly fill that in. I believe the lost revenue replacement, for example, may have that, but others may not.
You will for reporting. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be required for this, but in the reporting process, you have to dedicate some money to a project. So you estimate the amount that project's going to take and you dedicate it. And then there's the actual, have you spent the money that was dedicated? So there is a recognition of, okay, we're allocating funds to this thing, but it may not be done. And then the reporting asks, did you spend it all? Have you spent more or less than 50%? And if you don't use some of the allocation, it goes back into your pool, your fund that's available. Okay. It's just an estimate of, we think it's going to take that much. So not required for these documents, and we did not include it. You don't have to do that. Okay. Unless you have a good reason, make it easy on yourself, don't. Okay. But when it comes to reporting, yeah, you'll have to allocate some amount that they think it will take, get a good estimate. Okay. All right. If we mentioned your name and you didn't want us to, I'm sorry. We do that to let you know we're seeing it and responsive to you. Okay, Laura, we have a committee made up of citizens and board members to develop recommendations. Is this an eligible administrative use? Yeah, that would be an eligible administrative use, I think, related to ARPA funding. That's just fine. Sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned names. The dozen more resolutions available online can use depending on which type. Can we get those to get ideas? Absolutely.
Yep.
You can use these for ideas to tell you what you might want to do. Okay. Address the possibility of grants to nonprofits.
There's a resolution for setting up a program. Again, for providing grants, you do have to set up a program that the town has to receive applications and administer. Right now, the best way to do that is going to be working with your township attorney. So if you do want to set up grants, it is a possibility that is allowed under the American Rescue Plan Act, but work with the town attorney to set up the program.
Another avenue is lost revenue. We keep coming back to that. And I hope you understand it's because it's so powerful. If you're allowed to give something to a group with your general fund money, it's not all nonprofits, but some, you could do that with lost revenue and avoid the grant arrangement. Okay, that's fine too. With the purchase of a fireproof cabinet or file cabinets fall into one of these funds, lost revenue, yes. In the other categories, I don't see that as a possibility.
Mhm.
When calculating lost revenue, is this only receipts received, or do we need to take into account income less expenses?
Just receipts received. Again, clarification on that issue will be in that lost revenue presentation.
The only thing you take out is federal money that you got, if it came from the feds, most often meaning FEMA, and if you borrowed something. Okay. Interest income from whatever bank account roll into the ARPA balance. No, you just get to keep it. The interest earnings on what you invest are the townships. It is not federal ARP funding. Okay. Yes, you can keep it for general use. What types of expenditures qualify for use of these funds? We have a long presentation. Well, I shouldn't say long. I want to say it's 20 some minutes. Maybe that's too long. On the same page I mentioned earlier in the ARPA section of our webpage, that's one we've got there along with a lot of documents. So I'm going to leave that there and not go into it on this one. Please take a look there. If you have questions, let us know by phone or email. We're happy to answer follow-ups to that training. Resolution forms, again, they're going to be on the ARPA section in the webpage. So news and information, ARPA section, and it's going to be in there. Okay. We did a bank account just for ARPA that'll pay interest. We'll transfer. Is that fine? Yep, that's acceptable. I don't know why you're seeing someone else's screen. It was probably an accident there. Okay. Would digitizing town records be applicable? Eliminate touching? It could be. It's a bit of a stretch, but you could do it either under lost revenue, or if you think you can connect that and can you convince somebody? Okay. It's kind of the straight face test. Do you have a legitimate reason to say that this is going to be a COVID response? And then you could do it. Okay. Board decided to use ARPA for broadband installation. Will that project cover legal fees, participation, service fees related to the project? I would keep it only for infrastructure, but if you need certain legal aspects related to it, then yes. The surveys, I don't quite know how that would connect to broadband infrastructure installation. So right now I'd say no on survey fees. Previous question was confusing, talked about trying to get ARPA for general use, wondering what the process was in that instead of using the 4 current uses. Okay, so Eric, it's you have those four categories. That is it. With ARPA money, there is no possibility of anything outside those 4 categories. But because lost revenue is so open-ended, that's the one I think you're going to want to focus on. Again, there's a separate training, its own standalone training on lost revenue in the ARPA section of the webpage. Reporting required each April, correct. Only in April, that is your deadline. That's it. Okay. A lot of rain causes washing out of crossings so roads generally, yes. In the lost revenue category, a lot of townships are talking about using their money for roads because in lost revenue, you can do that. So the lost revenue calculator is online. That's something you can enter your information into. It'll spit out a number. If you get an NA or a 0, we can talk about how we might be able to address a non-standard situation. Some townships are in an unusual situation and it won't give the accurate number right away, okay? Pass a resolution. They set a dollar amount to allocate towards a project, okay? You'll set an amount per project that you're gonna dedicate to it, spend down off of that. You can add more later. You can access as return to your pool, and that's just fine. Okay, that's not necessarily what the contractors see. They don't have to see it, other than it would have to be in an open meeting and they could see it anyway. Okay, do your contracting and you can set a low estimate, and I would set a low estimate if you're concerned about that, because you can always add more. Does the resolution get sent in with reporting or just kept in the clerk's files? Right now, just keep it in your files. We don't have a reason to think you'll have to do something else so far. Okay. Can you review the reporting requirements? No, not today, because I don't know all of them yet. There's some documents out and we'll have a training only on reporting. We're taking this in pieces. First it was application, then it was the uses, then it was the confusing use of lost revenue. Now we're into the spending resolutions. We will have the training on reporting, but it's going to be standalone. Okay. All right. Let's see. Can funds be used for salary hours, convert digital records as a response to the pandemic?
Under lost revenue, yes. Under response to the pandemic, maybe. Again, as we talked earlier about digitizing documents, you're starting to stretch a little bit there, but if you need to supplement that, lost revenue is going to be your best friend in this. Okay,
and then a follow-up on the clean water revolving fund. Is that list that I posted on there only for drinking water? Is it for sewer projects? That one is for clean water, which can encompass both, but there's also another program called the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And I didn't post that. I posted the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, but both of those, they're the same kind of list. They look similar. Okay. And if you do EPA Drinking Water State Revolving Fund as a search, you'll come up with that same kind of page. So you should be able to cover drinking water and sewer, as long as it fits within one of those categories. Is the April report for the year ending 2022? And if you haven't spent anything yet, but use it for lost revenue, what do you do? That's more the reporting side. I don't know the dates they're going to have you report to. The report will be due on April 30th. So it would not be up till that date. There's going to be an end date that they'll have set for that. And I don't know what the end date is. Can they use it for chloride on roads and gravel for the roads?
Under lost revenue, yes. Under no any other category.
We have a small town. Can we build a new town hall with these funds?
Under lost revenue, yes. Under one of the other categories, probably not.
I think the certain things you do on a new building, if you can link them to the pandemic response, you could. So again, if you can spend it all on lost revenue, just put it in that category. But if you can't do it all there, like the HVAC with an air exchanger, we've talked about that, the ramp, certain things, certain line items, you might be able to call out in a construction and put those into the response to the pandemic category. I think that's fair. Is it okay to use these for clerk's hours or treasurer hours for preparing a report in April or just organizing materials?
For preparing the report, yes, probably.
Administrative expenses are okay. Yep. And
Mhm.
premium pay may be depending on the situation your clerk or treasurer is in, but
Mhm.
yeah, administrative costs related to it are okay. Are there future additional uses like the road and bridge fund? So I have no expectation that there's going to be new uses. There is a bill that already passed the Senate. It's in the federal House right now to make it so you guys could use the entire thing as lost revenue, basically no questions asked. That would get you effectively to do whatever you want to do with this money. So while no, I don't see anything to say we're going to use it, they're going to call out road and bridge. We have a way to do it now with the current lost revenue system. And it's possible we're going to have something greater as we see what the feds change that to. Okay, so yes, in either case, you'll be able to use at least some of it on that. Okay, you want to take Laura's here?
Yeah, when graveling icy roads, can ARPA funds be used to pay for the graveling because of safety issues? Second, graveling icy roads. So for the first question, when graveling icy roads, under lost revenue, if that's going to be a regular cost of township business, then yes, but for like response to the pandemic, premium pay to essential workers, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure costs, no. That's not going to fit under one of those categories. Second question, we have a family in our township that snow plows. They're struggling financially due to the pandemic. Can these funds be used to pay for their snow plowing? Yes, but so we talked earlier about grants to nonprofits, grants to businesses. The American Rescue Plan Act also allows you to establish a grant program for households. So the same process is going to be there. You're going to have to establish a grant process. You're going to have to receive applications for the grant, and then the town will have to review those and then award the grants. Again, you should be doing that process with your town attorney at this time. So that is going to be something you can certainly look into, but again, you're going to have to work with your township attorney. Next question, isn't or aren't town roads one of the 4 categories? No, town roads are not one of the 4 categories. So when the legislature passed this, it was passing this to assist certain pandemic related issues. One of those pandemic related issues is going to be lost revenue. I've heard from townships, I've heard from cities, I've heard from counties that we didn't raise our property tax levy. And so what they did was they kept things the same. That means their revenue was the same. And so that's why we have that lost revenue category and why it's pandemic related. And so what that is going to be used for is to pay for general government services that the town or government entity otherwise struggled in paying. And so here, roads are going to be one of those general uses. And so the town is going to have to pay for that out of that lost revenue category. We are told, next question, we were told that money received from Enbridge to reimburse us for the damages they caused to our roads was revenue to be counted when using the calculator. That does not seem reasonable. Okay, when we look at how the revenue is defined by the federal government, it's probably going to include that reimbursement money. And so that's why you would include it. If you don't want to include it and you want less revenue, you can certainly do that. But when we look at what the federal government defines as revenue, it's going to generally mean any money that's coming into the township. It's going to include, it's only going to exclude federal dollars, money from the sale of investments, and money from the issuance of debt and some other extraneous fees. But this reimbursement is not going to be excluded for the purposes of revenue. Next question, assume we have an amount calculated for lost revenue. Yes, you would need to calculate an amount for lost revenue. Next question, do we need to use lost revenue calculated for each of the following year, or could we use multiple year lost revenue calculations for one project? If you want to wait till a later year to calculate your lost revenue, you could do it all at that point, but you're given specific periods in which to calculate the lost revenue. That's going to be from January 1st to December 31st of the years ending in 20, 21, 22, and 23. Next question about lost revenue. So what the lost revenue amount? Then the next move is to make a resolution of how funds are to be spent under the lost revenue category. Not necessarily. So when you say we have this amount in lost revenue, they're going to be used like general fund dollars. Just saying the amount that you have should be sufficient. Could not join at the beginning of the meeting. This was covered. Is there a process of pre-approval of ARPA proposed projects? No. You don't need any sort of pre-approval. The board is given dollars, and then the board can look at the guidance that is given either from us or looking at the federal rules itself or working with their township attorney and then spend those dollars.
The next question asks where are the resolutions? They're not where we said they were. No, they're not. They're not online yet, and we're working to get them online. Many of you probably noticed we have a new web page. So we are learning how to get things up with this new system, hoping to be up today. If it's not up today, we look to get it up tomorrow. Okay. But it will be in the place we described at the link we described. It's just not there yet. Okay, can a cash donation be made to a special district such as a fire or EMS? Or is it required that the township purchase equipment and donate the equipment? With ARPA funds, the only availability to do that is probably under lost revenue. EMS, you might be able to do it under a response to the pandemic. But this money is not really suited to being given to fire departments for general operating. It's not for that, okay? Keep in mind, most of them are also run by another municipality, often a city. Cities got more than you did, so they got money there. There's also a fund, a special call out in this whole bill for fire departments specifically that no one else can get. So what you would need to do is identify what exactly are they going to use it for? Is it a actual impact on the pandemic? If not, no, you can't give ARPA money to them that way, unless you're maybe doing it under lost revenue. And in that category, yeah, we can give money to other governments. There's certain abilities to give money to EMS, first responders, which some fire departments qualify as, but not all. Okay, so what I hope you get here is caution with fire departments. You have to carefully describe what exactly is being done with that money and how it relates to the program. Can funds be given to a department for the purchase of a new fire truck? I guess you could under lost revenue, but again, in that lost revenue category, you can pay for your own roads. You can pay for a lot of things in your own township. I guess if your township has no need for that money, you could give it to somebody else, but we're urging that you don't, because this is only year one of a 4-year program. And that money sits in the bank and it can earn interest for you, if nothing else. And fire trucks usually should be prepared for over time. They should know it's coming and have something set aside for it. So again, caution with the fire department. Please just don't hand it over because we like firefighters, okay? There's things you may be able to do with this in your own township, and that's what it was dedicated for. Do they have to be completed by a certain date? Is it 2020?
Projects have to be completed by the end of 2026.
2026.
But money has to be allocated. Money has to be allocated for projects by the end of 2024.
Okay, so you dedicate it by the end of 2024, then you're kind of locked in. And you have 2 years after that to complete projects. For townships, you may not need all that time to complete a project. Okay. If the township has used project funds, do we backdate our resolutions to the project already completed? That's fine. You could, or just acknowledge that it was done. You don't have to backdate anything, okay? And I wouldn't. I guess you don't see any reason to do that. Just recognize, here's the resolution documenting what we did at that time. That's okay. What if the project isn't done by then? By the end of the deadline? I don't know. We haven't looked at what that would be. I'd be curious to know what the project is, and then we can talk to you about that. Local food shelf. This would be in the lost revenue category. Maybe a response to the pandemic if you feel there's a connection between the use of the food shelf and the pandemic. But otherwise lost revenue. And then with lost revenue, we're kind of in that generic, can the township do this or not? There's ability to get money to food shelves from a township independently. Okay. Purchasing new computers for the clerk and treasurer and updating office software justified as response to the pandemic. Yes, the hardware, I guess the software, if you're linking it to your response. So if it's somehow used in remote work, or it's gonna connect, then yes, you could do that. Where can you find a list of the things to use the money for? We don't have a list of things, but the dozen or so resolutions that we will have online will give you some ideas. The other resource we have is the training on what can you use this on, and that's already up. That's a PowerPoint training and some resources online in the Arpa section. Let's see, is the time learning how to use these funds like this Zoom meeting be paid through the Arpa funds? Yes, as administrative costs related to your projects. Just add it into one of the projects as part of the costs, because this is part of learning what you need to do and how to work for it. Okay. Did the second round of funds go to townships? I don't think we got the second disbursement, but some of you may have gotten a very small check, comparatively small. Okay. Because the state took the money left over that other townships didn't apply for, and they redistributed that among those of you who did. So you may have gotten that recently. Do you remember how long after what's the second tranche coming up?
A year after the state received, so end of June, beginning of July.
So it'll be next year for your second disbursement. Project planned is broadband and it's taking forever to get going. Yes, broadband is a slow deal. I'm sorry about that. Isn't completed by the end of 2026. Do we need a backup project to use the money so we don't have to pay it back? Possibly. Remember, you can kind of do trades here a little bit. You could certainly use your township funds for certain broadband infrastructure projects. Okay. We have towns that do that. So if you get to that point towards the end of 2026, well, can you take a lot of the ARPA money as lost revenue and pay for roads? And if you're just doing a trade, the general fund money you were going to spend on roads and you're now putting it into broadband instead, this is just a trade. We have to do it the right way, but ultimately you should be able to offset something so that you still have the ability to pay for that project, even if you get to the end of 2026. I have a lot of doubt that it should take that long to get a broadband project going. Okay. I'd be very surprised about that. Okay. Yes, that is a Lego Saturn V in my background. Let's see, the difference between a grant and a gift to a nonprofit. It's largely semantics, I guess. From a legal perspective, when we talk about grants, we're saying you're setting up a program with rules. You're going to do a solicitation, grade them or assess them, assign the strongest applicants, award them, and do a follow-up. A gift or a donation is something given without any strings attached. Both of them have to be done under statute, typically, for you guys. Okay. In conversation, it's usually semantics though. Lost revenue might be hard to justify. Well, let's call me later and we will plug in numbers. If it spits out a positive number, success, you get to use it. Okay. It's designed to be that way. And again, if the federal bill goes through that changes this, it's all just lost revenue to you guys. Okay. Can you do cement steps and a ramp into the town hall?
Yes, under lost revenue. Again, this is going to be your most powerful tool. If it's to make those steps and ramps ADA compliant for voting purposes, then you could probably put it under responses to the pandemic as well. But again, lost revenue replacement is going to be your most powerful tool.
we have reached the end. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We're up to 200 some participants, and Carl and I were a little worried that we'd have like 10 minutes of stuff for you guys. Pat, give me a call and I'll help you, but I'll have to explain the numbers you need. Thanks folks for joining, and I hope this was informative. I hope that listening to questions has been informative too. This will be online, either in this format or one where we do it and compact it down. We kind of like that 20-minute level of presentation time for folks. Okay, so thank you again for joining. Feel free to give us questions, and we're happy to try and help with these things. Look for those resolutions online this week. That's our goal, to get those for you this week. Thanks, everybody.